I hope everybody is fine. Okay, gentlemen, before we go ahead, I would like to quickly take a recap. I think my voice is clear to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for your response. Before I go ahead, I'll quickly take a recap of the story Button by Richard Matheson. In the story, as you know, there are three characters: Norma, who is in fact Mrs. Lewis, Arthur Lewis, her husband, and the third character is Mr. Stewart, who has brought an offer for them, and the offer is if, first of all, he gives them a gadget and a key, and the offer is if they push the button, they will get $50,000 in response. Now, Norma and Arthur, they've been living together for a very long time, but there are still conflicts and they have different viewpoint of life. Norma is of the view that means are not important, gains are important. On the other hand, Arthur is more focused on means. Their conflict continues. Arthur has his own arguments, which are very positive. At least they seem to be positive. On the other hand, Norma's arguments they are logical, but more materialistic and selfish kind of arguments. Now, this is the almost end of the story, and the conflict was to be or not to be, whether they should push the button, get the money, and get someone killed, or they shouldn't push the button and lead the life which they are leading. Uh, I have recorded another audio file uh, which will help you understand the idea and explanation on pages 4 on page 5th and 6th. I'll play it today, and from next week what exactly I'm going to do. I won't record anything, and everything uh, will be live. I'll read and translate it, or not translate, but some kind of explanation. I hope everybody's at page 5 now. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. And one more thing for your information is that this lecture is being recorded. And if there is anything which is important, you should, of course, switch on your mic. Otherwise, you should keep it off so that there is no distortion and we have a good recording. I will put the recording in your resources, at least for those people who don't have resources, internet, or things like that. Therefore, they don't join the class so that if they get any resources or connection, they may watch the video and get some benefit. Okay, I'm just going to play a file from Audacity. It will be in the background and you will look at the text.
Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is lecturer Suhail Aftab, your teacher of English. In my last two videos, I covered first 4 pages of the story Button by Richard Matheson. Now please get at page 5. Let's continue the story. Norma is speaking. This is Norma's dialogue. A chance to buy that cottage on the island. Norma, no. His face was white. She shuddered. Shuddered means she trembled. All right, take it easy, she said. Why are you getting so upset? It's only talk. After dinner, Arthur went into the living room. Before he left the table, he said, I'd rather not discuss it anymore, if you don't mind. Norma shrugged. Fine with me. Shrugged means she lifted her shoulders slightly to give a neutral impression. She got up earlier than usual to make pancakes, eggs, and tea for Arthur's breakfast. What's the occasion? He asked with a smile. No occasion, Norma looked offended. I wanted to do it, that's all. Good, he said. I'm glad you did. She refilled his cup. Wanted to show you I'm not. She shrugged. Not what? Selfish. Did I say you were? Well, she gestured vaguely last night. Vaguely, which is not clear. Arthur didn't speak. All the talk about the button, Norma said. I think you, well, misunderstood me. In what way? His voice was guarded. Guarded me, he was very careful. I think you felt, she gestured again, that I was only thinking of myself. Oh, I wasn't. Norma? Well, I wasn't. When I talked about Europe, a cottage on the island, Norma, why are we getting so involved in this? I'm not involved at all. She drew in a shaking breath. I'm simply trying to indicate that what? That I'd like for us to go to Europe, like for us to have a cottage on the island, like for us to have a nicer apartment, nicer furniture, nicer clothes, a car. Now all these things are, the needs or the wishes of everybody. But again, your path matters, the way you want to get there. Norma will, he said. Arthur is hopeful that he'll work hard, he'll spend some time, and after that, gradually, he'll be able to get all these things. When he stared at her in dismay, stared, looking someone with open eyes, dismay, hopelessness. Norma, when? Are you? He seemed to draw back slightly as he was afraid. Are you really saying that you are going to push the button in order to get everything you want instantly? I'm saying that they are probably doing it for some research project. She cut him off. Cut him off means interrupted. That they want to know what average people would do under such a circumstance. That they are just saying someone would die in order to study reactions. See if there would be guilt, anxiety, whatever. You don't really think did kill somebody, do you? Arthur didn't answer. She saw his hands trembling. After a while, he got up.
Now here, I'd like to take a short pause and slightly discuss the conflict which is going on here. When a person wants to do something, he or she may have many reasons. And Noma's, Noma is, I think, Noma is convinced that she should push the button. Her struggle is not to push the button. Her struggle is to take Arthur on board logically. Had it been just one character in the story, I think on very first page, Noma would have pushed the button and got the money and fulfilled her wishes. But there had been then no conflict. The writer wants to show that every time you do a thing, every time you are going to make a decision, the goodness inside that is symbolized here, Arthur is here, the symbol of goodness, that has its own role to play. And it keeps playing its role. But what exactly happens? Exactly happens this that you overcome goodness and evil wins. I've been telling very old tale to all my students when I teach this, when I help them learn this story, and I do the same thing to all of you as well. Story is very little, it won't be so boring, but it has a moral to learn and something to remember and carry on, carry away, I mean, for future. The story begins like that it was night and grandpa, was sitting in his blanket in the bed and his grandchildren, they were with him and grandpa started the story. Story is very simple. He said, there are two wolves in everybody. In everybody's personality or inside, there are two wolves. One is black and the other is white. And they keep fighting. And the little grandchild asked, Grandpa, who wins? And Grandpa solemnly replied, the one you feed more, he wins. Now, this small story has symbolism as well. The white wolf inside you symbolizes goodness, piety, righteousness, and black wolf symbolizes evil. And now the question, which is very important, is who wins? The one you feed more. If you all the time keep feeding evil, you nurture evil ideas, the ideas of harm to others, the ideas of, gluttony, the ideas of selfishness. Then, of course, black wolf will become stronger and it will, of course, win over the white one. But if you nurture the ideas, the emotions of happiness, peace, love, sincerity, and service to humanity, then the white wolf will become very powerful and it will win. And the black wolf will never die. Let me tell you, I know they don't die. One cannot kill the other. But if white wolf remains strong, the black wolf will sit in the corner and never try to fight. It will be afraid Therefore, the need is to feed more to the white one, never try to feed the other one. It will become lean, but it will never die. I think it makes sense. Let's continue.
Assalamu alaikum, dear students.
Let me play it. I think so. It's being
This
played
is
again
lecture.
from the beginning.
I'm not. She shrugged. Not what? Selfish. Like for us to have a nicer apartment, nicer furniture, didn't answer. She saw his hands trembling. After a while, he got up and left. Here you see, there is a conflict. I'm repeating this word time and again, why? Because the opinions are different. Arthur holds one opinion, whereas Noma another. Noma wants to get rich very soon, whereas Arthur thinks that there is a proper way and he would walk on the way, he would struggle, and one day he would get everything for himself and for his wife Noma. On the other hand, Noma believes, and she is behaving as an opportunist. She thinks since there is an opportunity, a chance, she or they must avail it. She strives for this chance and she tries to convince her husband to go with her, but she is unable to do so. Now, of course, whatever decision she takes, that would be her own, and she would be rewarded accordingly. When he had gone to work, Noma remained at the table, staring into her coffee. Staring, looking deep. I'm going to be late, she said. She shrugged. What difference it made? While she was stacking dishes, arranging, she turned abruptly, dried her hands, and took the package from the bottom cabinet. Opening it, she set the button unit on the table. She stared at it for a long time before taking the key from its envelope and removing the glass door. She stared at the button. How ridiculous, she thought. All this furore over a meaningless button, furore, uproar, excitement. Reaching out, she pressed it down. For us, she thought, angrily. In fact, she did everything for her own self. But in order to calm down her guilty conscience, she uses the word for us. She shuddered. Was it happening? A chill of horror swept across her. In a moment it had passed. She made a contemptuous noise. Contemptuous, scornful, full of hate. Ridiculous, she thought. To get so worked up over nothing. Worked up to worry for something. She drew the button unit down and key into the wastebasket and hurried to dress for work. She was so overwhelmed by her desires that finally she decides that it's nothing that's going to be wrong, and if someone is going to die as a result of pressing the button, at least it wouldn't be anyone she knew. She had just turned over the supper steaks. Steak, a piece of meat which is cooked. When the telephone rang, she picked up the receiver. Hello, Mrs. Lewis. Yes, she confirms. This is the Lenox Hill Hospital. She felt unreal as the voice informed her of the subway accident. Subway accident? Subway basically is underground. The shoving crowd, shoving means pushing. Arthur pushed from the platform in front of the train. Arthur was standing at the platform and people pushed one another, and in this, pushing, Arthur fell in front of the train, and that was the end of his life. She was conscious of shaking her head but couldn't stop. As she hung up, she remembered Arthur's life insurance policy for $25,000 with double indemnity for indemnity compensation. In fact, Arthur had a life insurance policy. The total policy was 25,000, but in case of his death, it would be doubled, and she would get, or the bereavers from Arthur's family, they would get $50,000. No, she couldn't seem to breathe. She struggled to her feet and walked into the kitchen numbly. Numbly, when you don't feel anything. Something cold pressed at her skull as she removed the button unit from the waste basket. There were no nails or screws visible. She couldn't see how it was put together, assembled. Abruptly, she began to smash it on the sink edge, smash to break something. Pounding it harder and harder, pounding and beating until the wood split. Now, what exactly she has done? She has beaten the gadget to the point when it is disassembled or opened. She pulled the sides apart, cutting her fingers without noticing. There were no transistors in the box, no wires or tubes. Just think for a while. If the gadget is empty, resistors, wires, tubes, these help you to communicate, to pass signals. There can be two interpretations. One is that Richard Matheson is thinking about the technology which is far more advanced than the technology we use today. The other thing, the idea which he has implied in these lines is that it's not technology that kills people. It is in fact people who cause the death of others. It was not the gadget but the Norma that caused the death of her own dear husband. The box was empty. She whirled with a gasp. Whirled means she turned about, gasped me, taking a long breath as the telephone rang. Stumbling means walking with difficulty in a way that you are just about to fall. Into the living room, she picked up the receiver. Mrs. Lewis, Mr. Stewart asked. Mr. Stewart asked. It wasn't her voice shrieking so. It couldn't be. You said I wouldn't know the one that died. And the big answer comes. My dear lady, Mr. Stewart said, do you really think you knew your husband? Knowing our own people is one thing, and living with them is another. She must have lived many years with her husband. She must have faced many problems in her life. She must have desires which remained unfulfilled. She wanted to get money. But the actual money, the actual wealth she had, the wealth of companionship, the wealth of sharing your good or bad time with someone, that was gone. She had sold the life partner of hers for money, but the choice was hers. Therefore, she couldn't blame anyone else. That's the end of the story. In my next video, I'll cover the exercise